Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty, and joining me this week, Russell Glasser. Welcome back.
There.
We are live Sunday, December 11th or 10th, 2006. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is a live public access program sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin that gives us the opportunity to talk about issues, interact with the public, answer questions about atheism, or discuss other people's beliefs, supporting rational thought and skepticism. We'll have the number up for you shortly since this is a live call-in show, but we've got some announcements to get out of the way first. If you have questions and don't get through on the telephone today, or you don't want to call in, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to all of the host, co-hosts, and the guys behind the scene, so you can get answers. You can submit questions, feedbacks, any kind of concerns you have along those lines. The audio portion of this program is rebroadcast over the internet in a podcast form and as a download. You can get more information about that at our website, www.atheist-community.org. And while we've been welcoming the worldwide audience on podcast who are sending us great feedback and are enjoying the show, and we're enjoying talking to them, there's also going to be a new segment of the market, which has started out now. We're being rebroadcast on some public access television stations in video form. There are some of the groups have talked about just getting a subscription to the DVDs off the website and then rebroadcast them. That's going on now. If you are part of an atheist organization, free thought, secular, whatever, and you enjoy the show and would like to rebroadcast it in your area, you can contact us at the email address before, tv@atheist-community.org. Visit the website, and there's information there on how to get a hold of the DVDs, which you can then format to the specs if needed by your local cable access station and rebroadcast it there. And so for the people listening and watching us in new venues outside of Austin, welcome. We're glad to have you. As I said, we're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road. That begins at 11:30. We will be moving that venue beginning February 11th, which will be the second Sunday in February. We'll be going to Ventana del Sol, where we've been before for one special meeting. We're going to do that on a trial basis for a couple months. So all the ACA members, if Romeo's wasn't your preferred location, or if you were tired of meeting at restaurants all the time, please visit the website, get more information on how to get down to Ventana del Sol. Starting February 11th, we'll be down there. We're going to see how that goes. The meeting rooms are rental, but the food we purchase comes off of it, so it may turn out to be a really good spot for us to socialize and discuss issues without having to worry about other customers and as you would in a restaurant. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio program called The Nonprofits, which is currently we're podcasting it ourselves. It's not affiliated with any network. We'll be having a live show this Saturday, December 16th, at 2 p.m. Central. That's hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Loubet, and features, surprisingly enough, Russell Glasser and myself. We'll be live again. There's a chat room that we run an IRC chat that we run in conjunction with the show, so that while we don't take calls, we still can interact with people who want to jump in and offer some feedback, and we're very grateful to the folks in there who often are able to answer questions and provide information that we can't. So it's good to do it live. I mean, we discussed the possibility of, could we just record the show and send it out? But it's a lot more fun when we have the interaction going on. In addition to the Sunday morning event at Romeo's, there is a lecture series which will be beginning up again on the first Sunday of the month. Beginning in January. Will be in the first Sunday every month. It used to be on the fourth Sunday of the month, the third Sunday of the month. I can't remember, but it's first Sunday now. It's at the Austin History Center located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. We'll get more information about that. It'll be up on the website as we get lecturers and more information about that. In addition to those events, the ACA also has a number of social events throughout the week, including Atheist Happy Hour, which is currently at Ninfa's. That's on Anderson near 183 and I-35. Thursdays at 7:30. Anybody who wants to come down, have a drink, have a meal, whatever, you're welcome. All of our events, with the exception of one, which I'll talk about a little later, are open to the public. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person who'd like to come down and meet some of the folks in the ACA, participate, maybe you'd like to sit in on a TV show sometime, or just have a conversation around coffee, that's great. You do not have to be a member, but if you're coming down to preach or proselytize, don't bother. We'll have the number up for you shortly. There won't be any live TV shows for the final 2 weeks of December. December 24th being Christmas Eve and December 31st being New Year's Eve. The studio is closed, so there won't be live shows for you folks in Austin. I am working on something, although I refuse to make any promises. I'm working on a way to get some sort of podcast out on those dates. I'm hoping to have some of the ACA folks drop by Dillahunty Studios, where we do nonprofit show, and throw up some mic and record some stuff and get some material out, so that all those people who were upset because we didn't have one over Thanksgiving weekend can get their dose for those weeks at the end of the year. If it doesn't happen, though, don't crucify me.
Well, my favorite shows routinely say we will return in 4 weeks, or around this time of year. So, I mean,
we already do twice as much program as any regular TV show does.
That's right.
Yeah, we have a longer season with longer shows.
So shut up and be grateful.
You'll take what scraps we give you and like 'em, laddie. No, we're glad everybody enjoys it. I was really thrilled to find out that some people were irritated that there wasn't a program for them over Thanksgiving. It was cool, yeah. Yeah, it's great. We're glad people are listening. We're glad that the show's starting to spread not only in the podcast but now in the DVD rebroadcasts on local stations, and we appreciate all that. And please keep the feedback coming in. Lastly, after this program, everybody involved usually gets together and goes down to Threadgills on Riverside. The show's on until 6 p.m., and we're usually there around 6:30, sometimes a little bit later. And that's also open to the public. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people who'd like to come down and eat, meet any of us, or talk to the people, a lot of the people behind the scenes who I mentioned last week at the end of the show, and I'm going to try and mention them more often. Sometimes we end up running the show down to the last few seconds, and I don't always get a chance to, but very grateful for all the hard work that and this is entirely a volunteer group. Everybody volunteers their time, comes in, sometimes an hour and a half or more before the show to set up lights and cameras and tables, and when they do a lot of work and on old equipment where stuff gets broken a lot of times, we come up with miracle fixes sometimes, and I'm not sure that miracle is the appropriate word. I'm sure somebody will call and complain, but when you watch how quickly some of these guys can fix odd problems with a few minutes left on the air, it's pretty impressive. And that's all the announcements.
Okay. First of all, I just want to harken back to an email we got a little while earlier, which praised the episode that Martin Wagner was on, where he basically didn't have a topic, but they went to calls as quickly as possible. And at least one person said, that was fantastic, because I'm sick of hearing you guys talk about topics at the beginning of the show. I personally like doing topics at the beginning of the show, and I know there's mixed feelings about this. But this week in particular, as of this Friday, I have just completed my first year of grad school.
Yay!
I have 6 weeks off, and I certainly wasn't going to use some of that 6 weeks researching anything for this show. So that guy got his wish, since it always takes a while for calls to queue up, I did think of a few things that I'd like to complain about in brief. Number one is the buying out of the radio station 970 KIXL, which was my favorite Christian station. Well, I was going to complain about that more, but it turns out that they've moved to FM now. So, in fact, we have 2 Christian stations in town. The reason I liked Kixel was because they have the freak show. I mean, they have your D. James Kennedys and your... Who is that? Focus on the Family Guy. James Dobson, and all sorts of crazy creationist stuff, and very entertaining. I can only take it in small doses, but people who have been listening to the show for years would know that I listen to Christian radio from time to time. The new 970 station is a Catholic station. It took a while for this to dawn on me, but little by little I realized that everything they were talking about on my old station was really, 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 really boring. No offense to Catholics out there, but your religion just isn't as funny as Protestantism. I mean, every time I tune in, it's some news about the Pope, or it's two old guys arguing in a very slow way about some extremely obscure point of reality, which, as far as I can tell, they just made up. Like, for instance, they were discussing a new movie about the birth of Jesus. I mean, yet another one to add to the list of apologetics movies. What? The Nativity? Yeah, okay. So they were complaining about the way Jesus' birth was portrayed, and they were saying that they didn't like it that they showed the Virgin Mary going through labor pains, because in real life, as they see it, labor pains are a result of sin, and since Mary was free of sin, in their opinion, they know for a fact that she didn't have any labor pains. And this is an impression I get of Catholicism a lot, which is they have a factual issue about something that they couldn't possibly know anything about, and they just assert that this was definitely true.
Do they take calls?
I have heard them take calls, usually from other Catholics.
You could call in and tell them that you know for a fact that Jesus was born breech. Or was going to be born breech, so they did a cesarean section. Yeah,
right. I think they would say I was wrong, probably. So there's that. Also, I just thought I'd bring up a topic which I haven't talked about for 6 years. It was one of the first things I ever talked about on this show, and it's called Theomatics. There's a website out there. There's probably several websites dedicated to them. By the way, if I mention any links, I've actually already put them on the Atheist Experience blog. So that's atheistexperience.blogspot.com if you're interested. But so there's this topic called Theomatics, which is sort of like the Bible code in that they mine through the Bible and look for hidden messages in it. And there's a Wikipedia article on it. Now, 6 years ago, when I wrote about this topic, I actually made a web program so that you could play with Theomatics yourself and prove that it's a load of bunk to your own satisfaction. See, what they do is they assign each letter a number, like A is 1, B is 2, and then they go on up to 9, and then they go to 10, 20, 30, and then they go 100, 200, and so on until they get to Z. Okay? They give each letter a numeric value. And then they take particular words or phrases and they add up all the letters in it. Now, it's not in English, it's in Hebrew. But it, I guess, works just as well in English as in Hebrew. And so they arbitrarily assign meaning to certain numbers. Like they say, okay, Jesus, if you add it up in Greek, it's 888, and that's neatly divisible by 111. So we say that 111 is the Jesus number, and then we go through in the Bible and search for everything that is a multiple of 111. And then they say, wow, these incredibly significant things are also multiples of 111. So those things must be the hidden messages of the Bible. It sounded really stupid, so I calculated the value of my last name, and it turns out that Glasser is also a multiple of 111.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks very much. So then I made a Perl
Hail
script.
Russell.
Thank you. I made a Perl script. It took about an hour, and this was even before I went to grad school. Where you could basically paste in any text you want. And the first text that I pasted in was the famous Dave Rhodes chain letter. This was a staple of the internet a long time ago. It was one of those first messages that said, okay, I'm going to email this to everybody, and then everybody who gets it has to send $1 to the top person on the list. By the way, this is incredibly illegal. Don't try this at home, even though it's not likely you'll get caught because it's pretty petty. Anyway, I pasted the text of the Dave Rhodes chain letter into my Theomatics program, and it turns out that all kinds of things, I don't remember the specific phrases, but they were things like, is guaranteed to work, and act now, and that sort of thing. So I figured that God was trying to tell me something about Dave Rhodes.
I've seen a lot of other things like this where, there are Jews who do this with the Hebrew alphabet. I mean, the movie Pi touched on this a little bit. There's others with the Bible code, and I remember one person had said, "Well, you won't find stuff like this in Moby Dick." And of course, they put Moby Dick in there, and they find all kinds of stuff.
I think that was the Bible code, actually, the one where they do crossword puzzles with the letters.
Yes, the crossword puzzles, the Omega code.
The word searches, actually.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, and the great thing about these codes is, they always find the kinds of things that they were looking for, like Hitler and, well, they didn't figure out the things early enough that the information could actually be useful. Like they didn't find a crossword in the Bible that said keep all your planes grounded on September 11th, 2001.
Right. After 9/11, they can go in and find all kinds of stuff, all kinds of warning signs. We were so blind. And that's because you can find anything you want to find. It reminds me of the backward masking thing with tapes. People hear exactly what they're wanting to hear. If it remotely sounds like, hail Satan, that's what they hear, Maybe it's,
Now,
a cheeseburger in paradise.
Weird Al deliberately put a backwards message in one of his earlier albums. There's a part where you can clearly hear it's going something like a backward sound. So I plugged it into my computer and reversed it one time, and it came out, "Satan eats cheese whiz."
In all of those things,
that's Weird Al for you.
When you found, like, if you were going through one of the various Bible codes or numerical codes or whatever, and you find that Jesus, and then they attribute all these good characteristics to Jesus because the words match, and yet you could go through and find a whole bunch of evil characteristics that match as well. It's just, it's.
That's true. They don't report on those.
In the book that we've talked about a lot of times, Innumeracy by John Allen Paulus.
Yes.
He touches on this a little bit too. And it's a good example of that. People don't recognize what is statistically likely. And when you've got a limited alphabet and a certain defined structure of words, for example, in the case of the Bible code where you're doing word searches, you've got 26 letters and you have certain letter groups that work well together and are going to reoccur, and they're going to reoccur at intervals which allow you to create whatever words you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there was a very, very short Wikipedia article on Theomatics, and somebody else, not me, linked my webpage, so I was kind of proud of that, and I kept it on my watch list. And just recently, I noticed that there was an edit war going on the Theomatics page, because apparently some guy came in, and for those of you who don't know Wikipedia, Wikipedia is the encyclopedia that everybody can edit, wikipedia.org, and this leads to some serious contentions about its accuracy or or neutrality. And so basically this guy was going and deleting everything negative about Theomatics and posting fluff stuff like, the book on Theomatics has sold 10 million copies worldwide, which nobody really cares about.
Yeah.
And then
it's
everybody...
Like the Bible is the largest selling book of all time. Okay.
Yeah. And he went and deleted all the footnotes too. And every time somebody would come and try to put the edits back in, he would delete the page again and restore it to his version. So we're now having a very funny discussion on it. So if you want to go to wikipedia.org, type in Theomatics, and then click on the discussion page, you'll see an amusing debate about Theomatics.
As a reminder, the phone number's up. Anybody, you can call in on any topic. You don't have to call in about Theomatics. if you don't want to. Although you're
or
welcome
Wikipedia,
to, or Wikipedia,
and its standards.
or you can find something silly that I've said. I'm sure. We've got a caller we're going to go to in just a second. One thing I wanted to point out that I missed in the regular announcements is that this coming Saturday, for ACA members only, there'll be a solstice party at the home of one of the members. If you haven't checked in on this, visit the members portion of the website or contact a board member, myself. You can email president at atheist-community.org. We'll get you the information. The member who's hosting this is looking for RSVPs, so we know how many people we're going to try and feed and provide drink for. So please check that out. We've got on line one, is it Mike?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Hi.
I'm doing fine. I was just interested in knowing how is it that you can, well, how do you determine evil from good?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I don't look at them as entities. We're talking about.
Well, you said earlier that you're looking in the Bible, you can find evil things.
Oh, no. What he meant was that if you look in the Bible and you use these weird numerology tricks to find words that indicate good stuff, you also find words to indicate bad stuff. Like you might find the word evil hidden in a crossword in the Bible somewhere.
But what's good and what's bad? I mean, who's to know?
Well, are we talking about the words good and bad?
I'm talking about your beliefs.
Okay, you want to
well,
know.
that's a separate thing
that's
from
different.
what we were talking about.
You want to go?
You want me to go first?
I'm easy.
Well, let me ask you something first. What do you think is good and bad?
I really don't care.
You don't care. Okay, then why do you care what our answer is?
So it wouldn't bother you if somebody killed you or robbed you?
Oh, it's already happened. I've already gotten robbed.
So that's good. That's fine.
That's fine. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'm still alive.
Okay.
Okay, and if you weren't alive, that would be fine too?
Well, you wouldn't know.
Well, while you're alive, what do you believe in? Like, living your life to? Is it to make money and...
I don't know what the noise is in the background. What things do we believe in? Believe in is a really odd phrase.
What is your goal in life to accomplish?
Well, there's lots of different goals. If you're talking about in a broad
I'm not talking about like in this society. I'm talking about in a deeper form.
I understand. Hang on. You're kind of in a way you're talking about two different topics. One, you're talking about how do you define your morality, and the other one is how do you derive your purpose in life, if in fact there is any purpose. I would say that each individual defines their own purpose in life to the extent that they want to. You can, set goals for yourself based on your own desires and everything else. I have, in learning more and more about the world around me, learning as much as I can about what the truth is. That's one of the goals. I'd like to be healthy. I'd like to, be reasonably financially stable. I don't need to be a multi-billionaire, although it wouldn't suck.
I'd like to enjoy myself, cultivate a lot of friends, improve a lot of people's lives in ways that are meaningful to them, and love my family, and the usual stuff. Probably the same stuff that you live for.
Okay. Do you guys have family members and they believe in another higher power?
Sure.
Some do.
Almost
some don't.
All of my family are
Most
Christians.
of mine aren't.
Do you find it hard to talk to them like during social, or say you go to?
I was just up there for Thanksgiving. The subject of religion and beliefs of that nature didn't come up at all in any casual conversation. For the most part, I had a good time visiting and socializing with them. Of course, my parents would occasionally mention something about they had been going to X church, or they had given money to their church, or something along those lines. But we didn't have an actual discussion about religion. What we did was what any other family, believer or not, would do over a celebratory holiday like Thanksgiving. We had good meals. We talked. We watched football games. We shared life experiences. Talked about what's been going on with me down in Texas while they're up in Missouri. And I had a lot of fun playing with my niece and nephew outside in the yard, and then board games. And
And I have a big family, and one of the people I ran into in Thanksgiving was my 20-year-old cousin, who is not an atheist personally, but he's into all the heavy philosophical stuff that college students are often into. And we got in a good long discussion over the vacation about the book I was reading, The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. And we spent many hours having a fascinating discussion. So I didn't. He might wind up an atheist, but I don't care if he does. I find this stuff interesting to talk about, even with people who don't agree with me.
I have one more question for you guys.
Sure.
But it's from another person. Just a second.
If you don't believe in a higher power, to who do you attribute the order of things in this world?
Okay, I don't attribute it to a who.
You don't attribute it to who?
I don't attribute it to a who. When you ask a question something along those lines of who do you attribute, who's responsible for the order of the world, you're already making a fundamental assumption that the attribution belongs to a who. Sorry. As far as the current state of affairs, you've got evolution by natural selection is a sufficient and well-proven and the most reliable scientific explanation for the changes in species over time, of how you can get from very, very simple beginnings to the complexity that you see today.
Okay.
Can I ask you something?
Okay.
When you when you drop something from a small height and it falls down, to who do you attribute that falling motion?
It's just the order of things. It's the way that it goes.
So is God like personally grabbing it and pulling it down bit by bit until it lands on the ground?
How can you say that he's not?
Oh, so things wouldn't fall down if God didn't have his fingers on them every second. They would just, they could hover there or fly off into space. You're saying it's only God that makes things fall down every time you drop them.
No, we're given. That's the one thing that we're given is the free will, and things like material things don't have a free will. They don't move unless we move them.
Okay, so you're saying nobody makes that pen fall down.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's pretty much what we say about the rest of it.
All right. You're entitled to your beliefs.
Well, thank you. So
Thanks.
are you.
Is that it? I guess so.
That's it.
I guess so. That's too bad, because I think that could have been really cool for a while. But it just baffles me. First of all, I understand, as somebody who spent, most of my life from the time I was 5 till the time I was around 30 as a Christian, and believed, probably shared a lot of beliefs that were the same as the last caller. I can understand where they're coming from. The thing is that it doesn't take too much to start saying, maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. Maybe instead of who is responsible for this, the correct question is, what explanation is best? Which explanation is best supported by the evidence? Which explanation seems to be most probably true? Now, she said, when we were talking about the gravity, how could you say that God wasn't pulling the pin down? I'm not saying that. I can't say that. All I can do...
For certain.
Sure, I can say it. God didn't pull the pin down. But all I can say is that there's no good reason to think that God pulled the pin down. We have an explanation in gravity. We have explanations for all kinds of things. There's no good reason to think that any kind of super intelligent being manipulated and created individually people. And as Dawkins points out in his book and in various lectures, this idea of an all-powerful transcendent God that predates the universe, that created the universe and everything in it, is patently absurd, because we have nothing but a massive amount of evidence that shows things start with simple beginnings and gradually become more complex. We have mechanisms that define that process. We have nothing that shows how something so complex as a God, so complex as some supernatural, super powerful being who could create the entire universe. He must therefore be much more complex than the universe and has no explanation for his origin. It's special pleading to say that God doesn't need a cause, but the universe does. Did you have any
No,
point to
go
add on
on.
that? All right. We'll go on to Andrew. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Fine.
Yes, I just have a problem with when I see like hieroglyphics and other pictographs and things of that nature on the pyramids, which are estimated 6 to 8 to 10,000 years old. It looks to me like there has been zero evolution. Tutankhamun could come and knock on my door right now, and he wouldn't look any different at all.
You're talking about it from an evolutionary standpoint. You're talking about an incredibly small period of time.
Yeah.
Evolution doesn't occur. The type of evolution that you're saying you don't see, you couldn't possibly see.
10,000 years is a very short amount of time.
Yes, it is a
an
very
incredibly short
short
amount of time.
Okay, from a scientific standpoint, then.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Okay, to you, is 10,000 years a short amount of time?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, absolutely. You have to have 500 million years to
Right, but
equate evolution.
it's essentially equivalent to standing in front of a giant redwood tree for
Well,
3 days and
hang on.
saying, I've been standing in front of this giant redwood tree for a very long time and I haven't
20
seen it
days?
grow.
No. You just said you
wouldn't you
needed.
expect to
Hang on. You just said you needed about 500 million years. Well, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
Okay, well, but man's evolution, is that correct?
Sure.
Human evolution
is
took place in about 100 million
100
years.
million
Wouldn't
years.
you expect, though, to see the slightest bit, a scintilla amount of evolution in 10,000? No?
Well, depends on what you're talking about, because evolution doesn't have a goal or a purpose. Evolution is nothing more than change over time, and we can see certain changes. I mean, you may
We're
look
taller
at a pictograph. People live longer. There's different body shapes and things, and all those are really, really minor. But you're talking about things. Dawkins had another example that I saw during the lecture, where if you held your arm out to the side, and I won't do it because I'll block Russell's face, and started at the center of your chest and worked out to the end of your hand. As a timeline for the planet. What you'd find is that the entire history of humanity would have been scraped off as a sliver of fingernail. That's how short a time we're talking about.
Okay, yeah. And I had another question. Do you believe that man is born with any kind of innate sense of right or wrong?
No.
In a way, yes.
Born with?
People are basically, I mean, part of the way our brains work is that we feel sort of a sense of justice, like we feel slighted when we don't think we're getting our way, for example. And another thing that we do, since we tend to be social people and survive in social settings, is to be concerned about cultivating relationships with other people and trying to get in good with other people, and also feeling slighted when our friends aren't getting their way, for example.
Okay, I have a quick scenario for you.
Okay.
Let's say there is no God.
Sure.
People are just born the way they are. There's, society dictates right from wrong. So you have a brother and a sister and another individual living on an island. And they were born and raised, just the three of them, never any outside contact from the world. So one day, the other individual begins to rape the other man's sister and then proceeds to murder him.
Okay.
Would you believe that individual would look at that and say, well, because society hasn't said that's right or wrong, I
think
don't know. Maybe it's
the
right.
people he raped and killed might have a couple things to say about it, don't you?
I'm pretty sure the woman he raped would object to that, and the guy he killed would not be too pleased about
then
the
where
fact that
did-
he was killed.
Right.
Can you explain to me where that innate sense of right or wrong comes from? Is it
From not wanting to be raped and killed.
I mean, people try to make this a lot harder than it needs to be, this concept of right and wrong or morality and everything else. What we're essentially talking about is how do you create a cooperative society? Obviously, we can tell right off the bat with hardly any thought that if we allow everybody to run around willy-nilly and do whatever they want, that this is negative for everybody, because I have no guarantee or no likely guarantee that somebody isn't going to come and steal all my stuff or rape me or kill me. So what I do is I find other people who... You're gonna need to. I'm
Can
gonna
you
have
turn
to.
the TV down?
I didn't hang up. I put you on hold. Oh, I bet he can't hear me because we had a problem with it on hold. I'll leave it on there. I find other people who are opposed to being killed, raped, and robbed. And we agree that we're going to form a group where we're going to set up rules.
Well, did I?
Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Still on the air. I thought you put me on hold.
No.
Well, okay. Is any scientific experiment that you know has something ever come from nothing?
Oh, wait, are we changing the subject
Have we-
now?
yeah,
Are you
have we-
satisfied with the topic of morality?
Are we going from morality back to the origins of the universe? Is that what we're doing?
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know that there was an itinerary here.
No,
but-
we're just trying to be clear.
we just want to talk about the things that you brought up instead of...
We were having a discussion, and after providing an explanation, you bailed and you went to this complete non sequitur.
No, I felt it was I was sufficed as far as your explanation.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I guess that's about it. I mean,
No, well, hang on. You asked if we had any example of something coming from nothing. No.
Correct. As far as you know, in any kind of scientific history, has that ever happened?
No.
Nope, including God. Have you ever had an example of a supernatural being who creates universes out of nothing and personally listens to the lives of every single one of the 6 billion people on Earth and either just came from nothing or was always there?
Well, that's not what I'm saying. That's what science is saying.
Okay.
Well,
no, we
no.
don't have an example of anything coming from nothing.
Correct, and then that's great because that's what the Big Bang Theory is saying.
No, it
No,
isn't.
it's not. If you can say that, you don't understand the Big Bang Theory.
Well, I understand the scientific method, and the first part is observation. And you can't prove it to be a fact unless you observed it. Now,
Yeah, but
if you
you
don't
were-
take the historical accuracy of the Bible,
Okay,
you may as
okay.
well throw out every history book
Stop.
ever written.
Stop. Hang on. You're
Okay, I'll stop.
You're going down this really common bad road of absolutes. Oh, you can't prove anything that you can't have seen or witnessed. Jeff gave a really brilliant example of this a while back on the show. The orbital period of the former planet Pluto is 200 and some odd years. Yet we have not known about Pluto's existence or observed it long enough to know that it actually takes that long to go around there. We've only known 1940, 40-ish is when we discovered Pluto. So we haven't even been able to observe it for one full rotation yet. And yet we know what its orbital period is. We don't have to observe the whole thing. There is a thing called math. And
Well, I'm just
Right,
throwing
so-
back what the scientific method says.
Yeah, but you are misunderstanding because you're throwing out this claim that what science says is if you don't personally witness something, then you can't say it happened, and that's just not true.
That's not the
There are-
scientific method.
I mean-
then I must be reading a different scientific method.
Apparently, you are. You should stop reading science books by creationists.
see, the thing is that what you're doing is committing a logical fallacy because if, for example, we wanted to discuss the origin of the universe, if we said that the observation must be the actual event, that's not something we need to observe. That's the explanation that we're looking for. The observation is that the universe exists. We've made that observation, and now we're going to see if we can find out what the explanation for this is. Your method, where you're saying that you have to have observed the universe beginning.
No, it's not
that
my method. That's the
leapfrogs-
scientific method.
That
the scientists are the ones that are saying it's a fact.
No, I'm
saying
sorry.
what's a fact?
Well, you name it, evolution.
Evolution is a fact. Change over time is a fact.
Well, I've
Just
never seen
get-
any transitional forms.
Well, then you
haven't
go
looked
to
for them.
talkorigins.org. The only reason you haven't seen this stuff is because you haven't looked or because
Oh,
you're
sure I have.
disregarding them. Because what happens is every time, let's say in the process from man and our common ancestor with apes, every time you've got the two, you find an early one, and they say, look at that big gap in between there. And then you find a transitional form, and it goes here, and the creationist says, nope, that's either a human or an ape. And then they also say, and now you've got two more gaps. So you fill in those gaps and you've got 4 gaps. And then they go through, basically you could line up a progression from the common ancestor that we share with modern apes to today's human, a process of skulls of everyone that's ever lived. And a creationist would walk along there and go, ape, 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 man. And that's absurd. They're denying the bigger picture.
One of my favorite pages on Talk Origins, for example, is this page which has all these skulls that you're talking about, and then they list what all the creationists say about them. You know, some of them say they're apes, and some of them say they're people, but right around the middle of it, they can't agree. They get exactly like a 50-50 split of the people who are looking at them. Half of them say, that's definitely an ape, and half of them say, that's definitely a person.
Well, why are there still apes?
Because we didn't come from apes. Man and apes share a common ancestor.
Right. If Americans came from Europeans, then why are there still Europeans?
Okay.
If bald
All
people,
right.
you know, it's...
Well,
I'd recommend you go to visit talkorigins.org. Almost all of the questions you've addressed and the ones that you haven't are addressed on there in detail. And if you think that the modern theory of the Big Bang is that it came from nothing, you're grossly mistaken. The only people who are claiming something came from nothing are the people who believe in a God that always existed or created a universe out of nothing.
well, everything, in my opinion, points to intelligent design.
Really?
No?
Like what? Like the fact that I have one tube which I use for breathing and food so that I can choke to death and suffocate? That's really stupid design.
Well, okay. For every example you have of that, there's another one for it. I mean, the human
But, I mean,
eye,
isn't the God...
everything, even the most
So human eye?
single-celled organism contains tons of data. It all points to intelligent design.
Nothing
No, I'm
points
afraid
to
it doesn't.
intelligent design, which is why the intelligent design folks aren't providing any evidence. They're lobbying.
I mean, even some of the champions of intelligent design, like Michael Behe, pretty much say, yeah, the evolution of the eye, it's pretty darn solid. That's why we have to go to biochemistry to come up with something that we can call intelligent design.
If you've got
You
internet
should read
access,
Behe's book sometime. It's in the first 5 pages.
if you've got internet access, you can also go to either YouTube or Google Video, I'm not sure, and do a search for evolution of the eye. There's a really great video by a scientist who demonstrates exactly how the eye can form in stages over the time span of evolution. It doesn't take anywhere near as long as you might think.
Okay, and ultimately we all end up in the same place.
In the
Is that
ground.
correct?
In
Pretty
the
much,
ground.
yep.
So Hitler and Mother Teresa are in the same exact place right now.
Yes.
Ground.
Why do
Yes.
you think that there should be this kind of cosmic justice? And why do you think Mother Teresa is a particularly good person?
I'm personally fine with
Because,
Hitler being
because
in the
I
ground
believe there's
because...
an innate sense of right or wrong.
Wait a minute.
And
I'm
I know
personally...
society-
Hold it. How do you get to heaven under your system of belief?
Love and serve mankind and love and worship God.
Well, that's... okay, so basically, as long as you take the God stuff seriously and worship God, then you go to heaven regardless of your actions. Isn't that right? According to Protestantism?
There was 2 parts. It's to love and serve mankind as well.
That's not what I've heard from other apologists, including one of my favorite...
What if I spend my whole life loving and serving mankind, but I don't love and worship that God that you claim exists? Am I going to hell?
Oh, I would say definitely not.
Oh, you would?
if
Okay,
you
then
know,
we're
live a
clear.
good
Then I'll say the same thing I said last week. If that's the case, and belief in God is not a requirement, and your thing is that you just need to love and work for the good of humanity, then you have
Which
a
is the way of
useless
the Christian
God. You have a useless God. If God isn't required, if I can live my life and not believe in Him and do whatever, as long as I'm doing good things and I go to heaven, then your God isn't required and He's useless. It's a
Well,
concept.
no, if he's the ultimate judge, then there's no way to determine what's right or from wrong. And if you say society dictates what's right and what's
Are
wrong,
we talking about the
society
same
has always
God
missed
who?
it.
Are we talking about the same God who once ordered armies of soldiers to go to neighboring towns and slaughter everybody except the young women so they could take them as their unwilling wives?
Yeah, we're talking about the same God that
So
has
that's
Ten
the guy
Commandments,
who
such
gives
as
you
love
your
thy
ultimate
neighbor and
sense
thou
of
shalt
right
not
and
kill.
wrong.
So you're gonna look at the things that you consider to be good bits, like love thy neighbor and thou shalt not kill, and ignore that this God supposedly sent people out to kill entire towns and keep the virgins for themselves.
Well, that's why the Bible is in two parts. You have the Old Testament, where God does appear
So
to
in
people.
But
the
the
Bi-
Old
in the Old
Testament
Testament-
is in the Ten Commandments are in the Old Testament.
Right, and Jesus Christ is not.
Right.
And
So
sending
throw out
his
the
only
10
Son
Commandments.
to be
Chuck the 10
sacrificed for our
Commandments.
sins, to me, kind of separates it.
Okay, so that God who ordered this mass slaughter and rape was the same guy, but he changed his mind.
Well, I'm not familiar with the raping thing that you mentioned.
Do you have some stuff? Or you probably can't look it
Well,
up in time.
there's no guarantee, but I mean, if you slaughter an entire town and take 32,000 virgins, you don't think that they had sex with them? Regardless, who cares if they raped them? They went and killed everybody and kept the virgins. Do you
For
think
the
that is
express
morally
purpose
good?
of taking those virgins.
Do you think that is morally good?
Oh, absolutely not. Which
Then-
is why
then
Jesus
how can
comes
you-
into the picture.
But it's God that ordered that action, and you're saying that Jesus is God. So basically, you're saying that sometime at this dividing point between an Old Testament and a New Testament, this asshole, morally bankrupt God suddenly turned into this love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek God.
You're kind of getting it.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
I'd
Well, that was
suggest
mighty nice
suggest that if you accept that, and you can disregard that your God was an immoral monster, and just latch onto the new stuff, you're morally bankrupt as well. And if you actually read and study what's in the New Testament, these concepts that Jesus brings forward, there's an idea of eternal suffering and torture in exchange for a finite crime, which is, by definition, infinitely more morally corrupt than killing a town full of people. So your
would you
Jesus
kill
is
one
no better,
individual
and
to
you've
save
used
the
up
lives
way
of
too much
many?
of our time talking about 30 different freaking issues. Visit talkorigins.org, get some information. Visit infidels.org, learn a little bit more. Read your Bible. Send me an email. I'll send you a bunch of really good verses to read.
Sure, TV at
Because
atheist-community.org.
if you go to BibleTrash.com and click on an article called "But That's the Old Testament," because Jesus refers to Moses. Jesus says, "You cannot believe me if you don't believe." Your theology is absurd. Sorry.
Can we get an Iron Chariots link real quick?
Sure.
Because if you go to ironchariots.org and you search for the word rape, some of the stuff that we're talking about is in there.
Yeah, we touched every possible topic, I think, there in a short period of time. Morality, origins, and then about the Bible.
We just basically did Atheism 101, as we do every week here on the Atheist Experience.
Woohoo! And after we're done doing it on the Atheist Experience, which ends at about 6 o'clock, we get together and we go down to Threadgills on Riverside. And since I hadn't actually broadcast that lately, there you go. We'll get there around 6:30 or so. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us. You don't have to be a member to attend. If your theology and your moral compass is as misguided as the last caller, don't bother showing up. Just send me an email. I'll debate with you offline. Offline from this show. Online somewhere else. But I can't get that. Even when I was a Christian, I'll wait. We'll get to the other call in just a second. Even when I was a Christian, I would not have said that God used to be evil and turned good, especially because the Bible says that He's constant and unchanging and
Right.
all this other stuff.
I mean, the thing that gets me is this originally stemmed from a question: if there's no God, then how can you possibly get objective morals?
Yeah.
And the objective morals are from a guy who used to be evil.
Yeah. I mean, the Ten Commandments, that's while he was in his evil phase, according to that caller.
I guess so.
But my thing is that you don't get to that objective morality anyway. Basically, what this caller's done is, if there was an objective morality from God, then he would be in a position where God gave him this morality, and he looks at the Bible and says, oh, God used to be evil, and God's now good. And yet the morality is coming from that source, which sets up a contradiction.
Right.
In reality, what you've done is the same thing that everybody else has done. You've looked at claims and determined for yourself whether or not you think that action is evil and whether or not you think that action is good. Hardcore theologians, rather than saying God was evil in the Old Testament, I'll give you partial credit for at least admitting that. Most of them write it off as God wasn't evil, those people deserve to die.
It's not nice to keep describing his position while he's off the air, because he might have had more to explain.
No.
Okay, fine.
I'm not concerned about that. I'm only talking about what he specifically admitted, and that's that the God was evil and then became good. And among most theologians, when they look at that, what they do is the apologists will say that those people deserve to die, that God was just in killing them. You know,
right.
I brought you into this world, I can take you out, kind of thing. But anyway, we'll move on to Raina. How you doing?
Hi, you guys. How you guys doing?
Hi,
Good.
fine.
Awesome. I love your show.
Thank you.
So informative. Fantastic. Okay, I have a couple of questions, and I think I already know the answer to the first one. But do you believe in hauntings and ghost activity?
I don't think anybody entirely rules it out, but we don't believe in it.
I don't.
I mean,
I find
I've
no
never seen
reason
anything.
to believe that.
Right. Exactly.
So you've never seen any proof or any evidence that there might be ghosts or some kind of entity that would haunt something or possess someone or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, I thought I knew the answer to that one. The next one is, do you think that there may be life on other planets?
Yes.
The word is might. And,
as long as you're going to say
yes.
might be, yes.
Carl Sagan, who was an atheist and a big promoter of life on other planets, once complained that people are always approaching him with their belief that they definitely know about the aliens. And he would say, you don't understand. I'm just going on the assumption that there could be life on other planets and we should search for it and find evidence for it. I don't think your abduction experience is credible.
Yeah, I have no problem at all. When discussing aliens.
Never anything like that. I was just curious about your viewpoint on that, because it kind of goes along the lines of, life and the way it's formed, like we found maybe possible evidence of life on Mars.
Right, well, I don't know about Mars, but I mean, the reasoning...
I'm talking about the water, which could be... the breeding ground for life in the past or the future, something of those lines.
The reasoning, which I recently read in Dawkins, was basically if life could evolve through natural processes here, then in principle it could evolve elsewhere. And if life is so rare that it could only evolve on 1 out of a billion planets, well, there are a billion planets out there. So if it's only as rare as 1 in a billion, then there must be a billion planets with life.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
Sure.
Y'all are so great. Thanks so much, and y'all have an awesome Sunday.
Thanks a lot. You too.
You too.
Yeah, from a strictly mathematical point of view, the probability of some other life in the universe approaches 1.
Yeah.
But whether or not, now that's different from whether or not we're talking about intelligent life. And then there's also this period of the time span, whereas there could have been intelligent life forms on some other planet, but they lived and died out in a 100 million year gap, 3 billion years ago type of thing. And also the problems of traveling vast expanses of space. I don't think we've ever been visited by aliens. Not even in the directed panspermia sense.
Yeah, a lot of people say that if there is life on other planets, odds are really good that they're much more advanced than we are. I'm not so sure I buy that or not, but could be.
It would depend. I don't know how much of a time. Well, I mean, if the universe if the Earth's 4.5 billion years old and the Earth is roughly 15 billion years old, then or 14 and some whatever, then there's that early period. We don't for sure know exactly, or I don't know off the top of my head, how long it might take for a planet to form that would be likely to support life.
Sure.
But if it could have occurred at the 5 billion mark, then somebody might have 5 billions of years of history before our planet even showed up.
Yeah, and of course, here we are, as you mentioned before, that little fingernail scraping in history. Yeah. So we've been here a terribly, terribly short time, but on the other hand, maybe any species that gets advanced enough to develop serious technology winds up inevitably nuking themselves into oblivion.
That could be too. Sad but true. Mitchell, how you doing?
Good.
Hey.
First of all, with that giant expanses of space, warp drive solves that problem.
Well, those are science fiction.
Yeah, I know.
But it would be cool.
Yeah.
It would be. Well, first of all, just with speciation about why half-man, half-ape creatures don't exist anymore. I mean, they're separated geographically or socially, and then basically just evolution continues. So,
Right.
And then another thing with how Christians create their own beliefs, and then or morals, and then just support them with different verses in the Bible.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to call myself a Christian, but just disregard all of that Jesus stuff. Yeah,
I actually saw a sign. There was an amusing sign somebody was holding up. They were standing, I think, in front of the White House at the time, where it said "Christian Atheist." And I know that there are groups that call themselves Christian who don't believe in any supernatural power. They're philosophical Christians, I guess you'd say.
Thomas Jefferson,
where they've bought into the philosophy of Jesus. Jefferson would have definitely been one of them. Yeah.
Right. I personally find objectionable things in the philosophy of Jesus, but
Yeah.
some of it is good.
Yeah, he said some good things, if in fact he existed. Whoever wrote that stuff said some good things.
Right.
yeah, I was going to say that's kind of a shame because there's so much better philosophies out there, like Buddhism.
I would have to support that. There are Buddhists who
Without
have,
specifically endorsing Buddhism, but
yeah, I mean, if you chuck the supernatural trappings of any religion and go from a philosophical standpoint, you can find a number of religions that have really good things to say. Jainism, for one, being a good one, where they're extreme pacifists, more so than I could possibly be. But Buddhism's that way, and it's of course related to Jainism. But I think you could
are
be
those people who worship Jane in that one episode of Firefly?
man called Jane.
Sorry.
Okay.
We had a
Anything
geek
else?
misdirection there.
Well, and just about the God being really cruel in the First Testament and then benevolent in the New Testament. I mean, for all we know, his morals are flawed now, and so, really, there's no reason in thinking that what the New Testament says is actually moral, because for all,
He could've flipped
my
again.
morals could be ahead of God.
That's right. There's no way
Yeah.
to tell. Maybe Satan took over, and he's been the guy who Christians have been worshiping ever since the beginning.
That's the nice thing about when you make up your own stuff. You can change it whenever you want to.
Right.
And the whole question assumes that the nature of things, the God, no God, remotely follows the theology he's talking about. The God that he's worshiping is the real one. I mean, even we're kind of assuming that as devil's advocates in order to do the moral comparison between the two. But you have to get to point B before you can really start using it. So you got to demonstrate that a God exists before you can start talking about which one he might be. It might be.
Yeah. And then, lastly, just with human evolution, I wonder what the creationist explanation is for, I guess, why humans have things like goosebumps, which are obviously from animals staying warm and looking bigger when you're scared, but now there's absolutely no reason to have them. I mean, why did God give this? And of course it gives this to us, and of course it's God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Look, Mitchell, the answer is always very simple when you believe in God. It's always just God did it. He had a reason, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah, that always bothered me too.
Yeah, I would love to be like a murderer or something and
I wouldn't.
support my... no. Maybe I said that incorrectly. It would be great if there was a murderer who supported his murder just by saying, you can't understand it, but I had reasons.
Right.
Trust me.
And I'd say that's everybody in the Inquisition and any other listing of
Right.
people where people have been killed on religious grounds, whether it be in Salem or terrorists or 9/11.
Some women who drowned their kids thinking that it would save them from going to hell.
Yeah. There's some, in a way, that's the ultimate sacrifice for your child, is killing them to prevent them from doing a sin, because then you're going to hell, but they're definitely going to heaven.
Yeah, I made an argument similar to that when we talked about, is it Yates? I think Andrea Yates was the one we were talking about at the time. I was in an online discussion with somebody who was saying, and I said, look, if your theology is actually what you say it is, if your beliefs are true, and these little babies haven't reached the age of I don't know, where
There's an age of accountability.
Age of accountability.
Like 7 years old or something. I don't know.
Then killing them and sending them directly to heaven is the best thing you do. Especially if you got 5 kids. Just looking at the raw math, you could kill 5 kids, send them directly to heaven, and then you're doomed to hell. But in actuality, that's not the case by their beliefs. What actually happens is, if their beliefs are true, is that you've killed your 5 kids, they get to go to heaven, and immediately after you're done, you ask for forgiveness and repent, and you get to go too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even. I have a hard time finding anything that would really qualify as the.
I gotta repeat a line from that I always use from my favorite comedian Emo Phillips, who said, "When I was a kid, I used to pray for a bicycle every day until I realized that the Lord, in His mysterious ways, didn't work that way. So I just stole one and asked Him to forgive me."
All right, thanks a lot, Mitchell.
Okay, bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
We got Scott. How you doing?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool, cool. It's kind of weird. I almost forgot what I originally started call. Several callers ago, that sparked my interest to call, but and I've heard lots of good stuff since, so y'all bear with me. I'm going to be kind of scatterbrained.
Okay.
A gentleman that called earlier that was asking y'all all the basic questions going through, there was something said about what's required. I believe y'all asked him what's required to go to heaven.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And and then the conversation went in the direction of what the requirements would be, and something popped into mind that I thought I'm sure y'all are aware of, but I thought was interesting, about where Jesus is talking about that all sins and blasphemies will be forgiven man, even blasphemy against the Son of Man. And later in the conversation with him, it turned to where Jesus is considered God by Christians. And in that by saying Son of Man, he's saying even blasphemy against God will be forgiven man. And then he goes on and says, but blasphemy against the Spirit of truth will not be forgiven man.
Right.
And basically saying, and in Jesus another place he says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? It basically insinuating it doesn't matter what you call me or what you think of me unless you do what I say. And then later, I think in the book of John, he says, if you're really my disciples, you will do as I say, you will follow my teachings, and then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And Jesus, throughout his entire ministry, doesn't, I like your little sign there, belief is just gullibility, Belief was always secondary, and belief only purchased people's interest in him to do what he taught.
It says faith is just gullibility.
Faith is just gullibility. Faith and belief, to me, depending on what you look at, faith to me, and my definition, is not belief. It's trust. Like you're talking about dropping the pen.
Well, it's belief without justification.
Yeah, belief is that's right. But if you drop a pen 3 times, you trust that it's going to drop the 3rd time. It's not belief. It's based in experience.
Sure.
Does that make any sense? It's more actually of a scientific way of thinking.
It's like when people accuse me of having faith. You've got faith the sun will come up tomorrow. No, I don't. I have a reasonable expectation based on a massive amount of evidence.
That's right. And the thing is that, and I hated to hear y'all say earlier, and yes, the comment about Buddhism, that, really there is no difference between the core teachings of Buddhism and the core teachings of Christianity. It's I see the looks on your faces. I grew up a Christian, and at one point I gave up everything I believed. Y'all have heard of the Gnostic movement, right?
Yeah.
You brought up the name earlier. Who did y'all say? That Franklin?
Jefferson?
Jefferson.
Jefferson, Carl Jung. There's been a lot of people that go in that when you look at just the teachings of Jesus, there are other writings that are not in the Bible that make it more clear that the nature of what Jesus taught. And that because what happens is when people get their hands on any religion, they turn it to power, they turn it to money, and it seems like y'all are very quick to accept what other people have presented you with about the historical teachings of this man.
No, actually, what you're seeing is me arguing against the most common perception of Christianity.
I can accept that.
I'm very familiar with the Nag Hammadi Library, the Gnostic Gospels, and those writings. The problem is that if I came on this show to argue with, let's say, the average Christian and said, well, the Apocalypse of Peter says, and they'd say, what book is that? I mean, it's not. It's not worth it. I'd rather have them tell me what they believe and then explain why I don't believe it or why I think it's wrong.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that. I mean, but to say it didn't appear. I don't get to watch the show that much, and it's not because I don't want to. It's because I don't have access all the time to the cable to be able to watch it when y'all are on. But
you can always download the free Atheist Experience podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't have any of that stuff.
Oh well. Do you have a DVD player?
I don't even have a cell phone. I'm actually borrowing someone's cell phone to call y'all. Yeah, isn't that pathetic? And you know what? I'm fine with that. But just to bring up this point,
I'm in grad school for computer science. You are anathema to me.
And I'm happy too. I'm happy the way things are. I don't need to go. But just to bring up to the Christians, because I'm not an atheist. I just don't believe blindly. I've done the things that Jesus told people to do, and I've seen what's happened repeatedly to me, inside of me, in the way my life has changed for the positive. And to me, that's not a belief. That's something here now. It has nothing to do with after I die. I don't believe Jesus talking about, when he talked about heaven, was talking about something after death. He even says himself, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And the teachings of Jesus are, if you look at the Jewish culture and the way that they use symbolisms and the way that they use these things, if you read it like a Jew would have read it or listened to it from their point of view 2,000 years ago, it would make a lot more sense. It would make more sense metaphorically, the same way we tell a story now about crying wolf. No, but who cares whether the wolf was, it was a wolf, in Ireland, and they were guarding sheep, and it was a little boy, if it was a little girl in Argentina, and it was a mountain lion coming after llamas. Who cares?
Right.
It's a metaphor point.
If you want to take a look at, for example, the Bible or the teachings of Jesus or whatever, as all metaphor and life lessons, and then, that's fine.
There are plenty of books with great metaphors in them.
My thing is that why not draw on all sources and just say, you know what, I'm going to take the good bits from everything, the things that seem reasonable, that seem good, that we even have, in some cases, evidence produce that this particular action or belief produces the best results. I don't see any reason to.
Good on you if you've changed your life from reading the Bible. If somebody had believed in the flying spaghetti monster and decided that this was an important life-changing thing that caused them to be nice to people and be productive citizens, good for them.
Well, I'm not. That's not. But you're misunderstanding. Before anything in my life changed, I gave up everything I believed literally, and stood there with nothing. And it was only then that I objectionably or looked at, or whatever the word is. I'm tongue-tied here. Objectively looked at what Jesus himself said. That I started applying it without believing anything. With no belief in anything, because everything I believed I saw flaw in. It was my motives were completely flawed. Heaven and hell, fear and want for reward. All of it was flawed. And I saw that clearly.
Let me ask you this then, because if you reject the notion of an afterlife, do you believe there's an afterlife?
I don't.
You said heaven was within you.
You don't like, and I don't like it either, because I don't have to choose.
No,
what does it matter?
I'm just trying to find out exactly what you believe, because you say you're not an atheist.
Yeah, we believe stuff. It's
you,
okay.
I mean, do you think there's an afterlife?
In me and all my infinite brain power.
No, in your opinion.
No, I don't. I don't think about it anymore.
Now,
Just...
Hang on. Do you think there's a God, or do you have something that qualifies as a God in your...
Every time I come up with what I think of a definition of God, something inevitably happens within a short period of time that absolutely destroys at least one part of it. And it's
oddly enough, that's true for me too, which is why I'm an atheist.
well, the thing is that I don't. In my history, but at the same time, why can't people sometimes just say I don't know? You know, I mean, really. The thing is that it's not that I don't believe in God or that I do believe in God. It's that I look around at me at this amazing universe. I look at myself, and you know, it's beyond me. You know, and not that I can't learn about it. Not that because I do. I read about evolution and many of these things, and I think it's fascinating, and I do learn. But it's not something that I feel pressure anymore to have to define or to think that I have to understand. And that if there is some
so you're an
superintelligent
apatheist.
being, no, I'm nothing. I'm just me. You know, if there is some superintelligent being and it's looking down on me, it understands the reasons that I don't try to define it or anything like that. And the thing is that if I were looking at something that couldn't possibly understand me, and I created it, and it was confused, or it got to a point where I'm at, I would understand. So why is that something? And this is why Jesus says, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven man, even blasphemy against the Son of Man. It doesn't matter. What matters is the decisions we make and how we live our lives, and that's for the here and now, first of all for ourselves, and secondary because of for what happens to us when we live in a certain way, what happens to everyone around us. I know where y'all are going with the head shaking. To live in a certain way, it's the morals and all that.
No, I have an objection, first of all, to this notion that Jesus said everything else will be forgiven. First of all, who is he to forgive me? Does he exist? Is he a God? What is this concept of forgiveness? Have I done something, wrong by blaspheming Jesus that actually is deserving of forgiveness? And if there's no heaven afterlife, if heaven is within me, as you say, then why should I care whether or not I'm forgiven? I'm finding a lot of inconsistencies even within the philosophy.
Okay,
just like
and this is all, man, I've been through all this internally big time. I would like for some, I would like to continue it, but to continue, I'd take up a whole bunch more time, and I don't think that necessarily would be
let me just say this, though.
Email me,
I think, for the most part, you and we are in violent agreement on most of the important issues. I mean, we agree that we don't think about an afterlife. We don't necessarily believe that there's that there's supernatural stuff. We agree that it's a good thing to be nice to each other. I'm comfortable with the label atheist. You're not. There you go.
Yeah, because atheist,
that's fine.
Atheist isn't saying I know there's no God.
Yes,
it's a lack of belief in a God. And in the case of strong atheism, what I can say that I'm as sure that there's no God as I am that I'm sure there's no leprechauns. And in that sense, I'm sure. But I tend to use the label atheist because it's the best description for what I am. I don't have any beliefs in a God. And the other reason to use it is because it talks about the issue that I think is important, which is, and maybe a better thing, which would be more important, would be an atheist. I being somebody who doesn't just accept things on faith.
And you know what? No one should. And the sad thing is that the reason that Christianity has turned into what it has from its original form of what Jesus taught is because of that very thing right there, and the people that believed in whatever they were told. I want to go back.
We got to let you go, Scott. We got other guys on the line. You can feel free to call back some other time or email us.
I'll email you about that whole forgiveness thing. I'll run something by you, and if you want to respond, you can. If you want to keep some kind of dialogue, that's fine.
Sure,
but, feel free. What's your name again? On the right as I'm looking.
I'm Matt.
Matt, okay. And what's your other name?
I'm Russell.
Russell, it was nice to meet you, and I'll email you, Matt, about that.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Let's see if we can get on to some more callers here. Anthony, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Not bad.
Fine.
I liked a lot of the comments that the last gentleman talked about. You guys are into basically historical evidence, or you need evidence to prove anything. And let's just say, just for an example, like the Great Depression or anything that happened before both of you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you both would maybe agree that you believe that either that any of these events that happened before you were born happened because maybe you studied them from a history book or whatnot, right? But how do you really know? How do you really know that the books are right? I mean, you say if you don't believe in Jesus or you don't believe, I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found them. I actually witnessed and saw them at the Chicago Museum of Art. I mean, they're from eyewitness accounts from what happened 5,000 years ago.
Sure, there's a level of evidence I can be given at which point it would make more sense to believe in it than not believe in it.
Right. I mean, it just happens to be that it's been so many thousands of years as opposed to the Great Depression, which was only 100 years ago or so.
No, there are things I believe thousands of years ago probably happened, although they get fuzzier as you go back in time.
One particular point about all of that is something independent confirmation. If you have an historical event and it's written about by a variety of sources, you can glean from that collection what the most likely truth is about the story. And for example, in the case of Jesus, there is not one single first century author outside of the books in the Bible that even mentions him. None.
Oh, there were multiple.
No, there were none. There's Josephus, which Josephus lived slightly after Jesus would have lived anyway.
Quite a bit after.
There's the Testimonium Flavius, which is in Josephus's writings, is generally considered, even by many Christian scholars, to be a forgery. But even if it wasn't, that's one. No other contemporary. Now, you have some that came late 1st century and early 2nd century, but that's
you have the Gospels. You have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Which already were written many, many years after he died.
And weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
Well, let's
now, hang on. That's important.
Okay, go ahead.
Those books weren't written by the people whose names are on there, and the times for the books that we have, the historians are nice in that Paul's writings probably come first somewhere around 50 to 70 to 90 AD, but the first Gospels don't appear until even the most gracious Christian historians talk about around 65, 70 AD, and many are much later. We don't have any copies that are older than about 250 to 300 AD. The important thing is that if you look at that, let's say that the time frame's about right, and Jesus was born and lived and died around 33 AD. And then Paul starts writing about him 30 or 40 years later. Well, that would be roughly like me writing about somebody who lived 30 or 40 years ago. Let's say I wrote about Elvis or John Lennon.
There's also the possibility that we still haven't found many of the scrolls that are. I mean, we're talking thousands of years.
Well, then when we find those things, then we will discuss those as evidence.
And until they're found, there's insufficient
evidence. Let's talk about God for a second and the belief in God, and just to put something else in perspective.
Okay.
If most people in society base their beliefs on evidence, and since the Bible says, or if to believe in God, the Bible says, "Ask and ye shall receive." If both of you, and many other people, including atheists or other agnostics, if everything is based on evidence, would you be willing to at least ask that question and say, God, if you are real, would you show me that you're real? Because if that's the only true test.
Hang on. The answer is yes, and we have. And by the way, I was a Christian for 25 years.
Okay. God, if you're real, show me some evidence.
Well, you're saying that kind of sarcastically. You have to mean it from your heart.
I'm sorry. Is God bothered by my tone of voice? Can he not give me evidence because...
Wouldn't it be a prime opportunity for God, even in that sarcastic
to drop a light on my head or something?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'm not trying to get into any kind of an argument with you. I'm just...
Well, sure you are.
That's what we're here for.
You called in. You called in.
The world is so
Hang
complex.
on.
Go ahead.
You called in. And you ask questions that make assumptions about things, and you're looking for our responses. In the case of this, I was a fundamentalist Christian for 25 years. I was active in the church, and I was preparing myself, studying with the hopes of going to seminary training and becoming a minister, when I discovered that the stuff that you're talking about earlier about, for example, Jesus, and what you're talking about now of this broader concept of God, simply is not supported by evidence or reason. And that's why I'm an atheist.
Okay, well, the only thing I see is that it's just, I mean, it's really difficult to believe that something can come from nothing. And I know you've heard that before. I know you've heard that before. I mean, it's like
we've heard it before this show.
If you had a wristwatch on, and it's made of hundreds of little electronic parts and metal parts. I mean, just somehow randomly they just come together.
Yes, we're familiar with Paley's watchmaker analogy and finding a watch on the beach. If you go to talkorigins.org, if you go to ironchariots.org, you'll find plenty of actual responses to that. None of this stuff is really as complex and mind-boggling as we, and I'm including myself because I used to believe this, would like it to be.
Well, you should analyze the construction of the human eye, and you'd be amazed.
We just did this an hour ago.
We did this an hour ago in the show.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay, and the answers to that question are also at talkorigins.org. The eye, I mean, you've got the receptors are backwards and you're stuck with a blind spot. How is that intelligent?
Well, are you basing everything on a Big Bang? I mean, do you guys believe in a Big Bang? Is that is that how you think the Earth came into existence?
I think the Big Bang is the best current scientific explanation. I think it may not be necessarily right on the money, and we haven't got all the issues sorted out, but sure.
Okay, well, I'll just let you guys go with that. It's just the world is very, very complex. I mean, it's like, look at the UT Tower. Somebody had to create.
Yes, it is.
Yes, somebody did design and build the UT Tower, and we can go down to the city planning office and look at the original blueprints and find out who that person was. Saying, do you have an I mean, this argument from complexity, you really need to jump over to Talk Origins and Iron Chariots and look. Oh, thanks. Anyway,
okay.
I don't know how many times in the show we can answer the same questions, but Jay, how you doing?
All right, guys. I'm sitting here with a big grin on my face. You guys, you really deserve compliments for your Atheist 101 lectures. And I encourage you to be patient with these people that are calling in.
We try.
I'm trying, and I realize that not everybody's going to watch the whole show. So, but to get
the question I have for you, real quick, is these people. If you listen to them, and we've had friends and coworkers over our lives, they're bright, they're educated, but somehow they, in my opinion, reaching kind of an atheistic conclusion doesn't require great mental gymnastics. It's kind of obvious. And yet, there's so many people, it seems the majority, when you come to this subject, you can meet engineers, mathematicians, people who are very bright.
Yeah.
Look, I think one of the things...
They shut down. Their logic and reason shuts down. And I was wondering if you guys have an explanation for that, or...
I think one of the things I've learned in my life is that you don't have to be stupid to fall for something stupid. Just a couple of nights ago, I was watching a documentary on 2020 about the Nigerian scam emails and the people who have been ripped off out of all their money because they started out by responding to an email that said, "Hello, I have $20 million with your name on it if you'll just send me a few thousand." Some of these people were really smart. Some of them were doctors. Some of them were very successful businessmen, and they fell for it. I don't think people are dumb just because they fall for dumb things.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from, first of all, we're generally uncomfortable with not knowing. I mean, there's lots of questions out there that we don't have the answers for, and that can be very uncomfortable because we're curious. And getting something that seems like the answer can kind of, smooth that over and make you a little more comfortable. When somebody offers you the answer, for example, God did it, you and I both realize that is the epitome of a non-answer. You haven't answered anything. All you've done is postpone the answer and couched it in a mystery and prompted more questions than you could have ever hoped to have answered. But for some people, if they're particularly good at compartmentalizing, or if the discomfort with not knowing, especially discomfort about not knowing what happens after you die, when there are other people around who believe something, that if the discomfort's strong enough, it's easy to say, you know what, yeah, that's an answer. God did it, or you know what, after I am dead, my soul goes to heaven, without ever thinking about, is there any such thing as a soul, and why should we believe that there is?
Well, really, who wants to be dead?
Yeah,
nobody.
Right.
Well,
right.
People who commit suicide.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But generally, I think there's something wrong with them.
Another comment I would make. I guess I agree with you. Religion offers an easy answer to some big questions that we're never really going to get a handle on. But another point, and I'm sure this is obvious to you guys too, but it comes up a lot during your 101 debates. One of an argument for atheism is that you could say, to try to be happy, to attach your happiness to something larger than yourself, to be ethical, to be moral. These are some of the most noble aspirations that men can have. And so to base a foundation for those ideas on superstition or mysticism may not be the best way to go.
Yeah.
That's a very simple statement, but it's one you might articulate when invariably the conversation turns to ethics and morals and where does it come from, and people make up their own ethics. And it seems to me that a more aggressive response to that is superstition is not a good place to get those moral and ethical value calls.
Although the believers
Absolutely
wouldn't consider
right.
it, I agree. The believers wouldn't consider it superstition, which is why I think I harp on faith.
And which is why I harp on those really bad things in the Bible, like the slaughter of villages.
And chick tracts, which aren't in the Bible, but they're bad, and you've had a lot of fun debunking those over at
Be
IMG.
patient with these people because you guys have to show them the light, or we're all doomed here.
I hope we're not doomed. I hope
know.
nothing is dependent upon whether or not I can explain something 3 times in one show.
Well, maybe not just your show, but the rational people
Spread
out
the
there.
memes.
Yeah, spread the memes. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Okay,
Appreciate
bye.
the call. And we're running really short on time, but we got Jacob. How you doing?
About 2 minutes to wrap up. What's up, Jacob?
Hi, how y'all doing today?
Good.
Fine.
I'm doing good. Got a question for y'all. I mean, okay. How do y'all believe, how the Earth and the universe got started? I mean, I personally believe that, maybe the Big Bang Theory did happen, but there has to be a higher being that,
Why?
caused that,
Why?
There has to be a higher being. I mean, I believe,
Why?
Hello?
Why? You said
Why?
there has to be a higher being, and I'm saying why. You made an assertion that is the most that is a requirement, and I'm asking what is the justification for you to say there had to be a higher being?
Well, it doesn't make sense if things just happen just like that,
So where did God come from?
Well, I mean, thing about God, I mean, we can never. I personally in my religious beliefs, we can never understand God. I mean.
Oh, so did he happen just like that?
No, I mean, he didn't just happen just like that. I mean,
So if
I
you've
personally believe that
got something that we just don't understand, and we're willing to admit that we just don't know, then why not say the universe? Why make up a God?
No, I mean, hold on real quick.
No, no time to hold on. TalkOrigins.org. I have a 3-time limit on how many times I'll answer the same question in one show. We're almost out of time. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, Russell, for coming down.
Thanks. It's a pleasure, always.
It's been too long. For the people who've been asking about Tracy, yes, we'll be getting Tracy back on. She's been shafted by the recent episodes that we're missing. We'll be going to Threadgills. Anybody in Austin who's willing to come down and join us and talk and be reasonable, we'll be down there shortly, about 30 minutes or so. We'll see you next week.